This program was made possible by a grant from the Foundation for Montana History.
This film was created by the McCone County Library, with assistance from the McCone County Museum.
Hello, my name is Mary James, and I'm the library director at McCone County Library in Circle, Montana. And I love a really good story. So I am so lucky to be able to partner with Herb Allison and the McCone County Museum and the Foundation for Montana History to be able to bring you these real local stories from McCone County. They're lovely and absolutely fascinating, and I hope you enjoy.
Well, full name is Earl Wesley Jensen, and I was born in the first month, 31st day of 1924.
So you'll be 102.
I'm 101 now. I'm over halfway through that next year. I'll be 102 in January 31st, if I make it that long. Hard to say with this interview.
Now,
They might call me from Hollywood or someone want a stand-in for somebody.
there you go. Now, were you born in a hospital or were you born at home?
Born at home. All five of us. There were five in our family, and we were all born at home. Okay, you got another question?
What did your mother tell you about your birth? What was that like? Was she alone or?
Well, Dad was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did she have a midwife?
Huh?
Did you have a midwife or?
No, they were about the midwife on the place that I have there close to the highway. That's where they live, Mrs. Gaines. But she wasn't all, and it was about a mile away, and it was about middle of winter, and you had to go by wagon and team. And I remember my older brother, my uncle and aunt lived about a mile away on another homestead, and she was having a baby the same time as Mama was. This was the first one, and that midwife was up there with her. And those two kids were born 5 minutes apart, but Dad delivered the one at home. That was my older brother, Harry.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And, the homes and stuff were not very good.
What were they like?
Well, I think what there were is homestead shacks, that were pulled together, and then they put a roof over them.
What did they build them out of?
They were built out of, those homestead shacks they called it barn. It was a board about that wide, and it was kind of tongue and groove. And that's what you built outbuildings out of. And the homestead shacks, they were built just out of the same stuff and then tar paper.
So imagine they weren't insulated at all.
And then the windows were single pane. And no, it was
That'd be terribly cold.
very cold. We jump out of bed, run to the kitchen where they had already started and the oven door would be open. That's where we got the heat. And of course, we had a heater in the main living room area, but no, they weren't very cool. They weren't very warm.
How cold do you think it got at night? Like at 4 in.
Well, I suppose, Dad was always up during the night stoking that heater with, we burned lignite coal. But I don't remember, you didn't, you had all kinds of covers on all these little pieces of quilts. They weighed a ton, but you just had a little cotton mattress underneath, and I don't think it ever froze in the house, but Dad always kept the fire going.
So where did you get your coal? Did you have did you
Well-
buy it or did you have like a coal?
Well, there was about there's coal in this country that kind of odd cropping is, and it was about a mile and a half from where we lived. We mined coal there, and later on, we mined coal. It was on railroad land, but you paid them 10 cents a ton royalty, and then you could mine the coal.
Was it surface coal or you had to dig a hole?
Well, it was surface. Well, you uncovered it, the surface. It wasn't in under the bank. No.
You didn't have to dig like a mine or anything
No,
like
no,
that.
no. What was the vein about that thick?
So can you tell me where your folks, were they born in McCone County or did they come from somewhere else?
That's what I was going to tell you.
Oh, sorry.
To start with, was my dad immigrated from Denmark in 1907, and he went to South Dakota for 3 years, learned to speak English, took his citizenship test, and then he had an 1 year older brother that was there, and then in 1910 they came out here and homesteaded, and they both immigrated from Denmark. Well, then that was in 1907, and Dad was about 23 years old, and he tells about coming over. That's the only time I talked to him about coming over on a steamship. I mean, a boat, I don't know, from England, and it took several weeks.
So did he go through Ellis Island then?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Has your family been able to find his shipping
Yeah.
information?
Yeah, my aunt or somebody put that together, that it said Danes. Well, Dad went back after he homesteaded. Then he went back in 1914 and brought 4 of his younger siblings over here. That would be like Neil Jensen's dad, and Jake was a young fellow. He was only 17 when he came over. And then he had two sisters and another brother. They were younger than Dad, and they came over here and homesteaded. And then in 1919, that's when my folks got married, and that was about the time of that flu, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they survived that. I've heard stories tell about, some people died and they had it was the winter time and they keep them frozen till spring and stuff like that. But I don't. That was before my time. And wasn't any. You just doctored at home, bed rest, stuff around your neck, stuff like that. If you breathe that. Mentalatum, that was what we called it.
Jim was saying Vicks.
Yeah, Vicks was later. But that's the same with the menthol in there or whatever it is.
I imagine it was like in a pinch you could use horse liniment or something.
Well, they used sometimes they put that liniment in a teaspoon of liniment and in a lot of hot water and drink it like a regular liniment.
So why did your dad pick McCone County? He was in South Dakota. Why McCone County?
Well, I don't think, that was, Homestead started long before they came out here in North Dakota and then came this way. And I suppose that was getting to the place where there were still homestead land available. Even the Vita country had been homesteaded by that time. And that's how I think there was somebody that would take them out and show what was available, because it's just grassland and rocks, for the survey. How would you know,
They had a locator.
Yeah, locator, yeah.
Locator.
Yeah, that's how he came out here, and they had when they came from South Dakota, I think they had, like a team of horses and a plow and a drill, and shipped that by train to Glendive. And but between the two of them, I think at one time they had 3 oxen and 1 milk cow that they drove on like a disc. That was before my time, so I just, yeah. And we just, well, there was five of us kids, and they were born in 6.5 years. My oldest brother was born in 20. My youngest brother was born in November 26, Pete. And can you imagine? And our well was probably 300 feet down the hill, carry that water in buckets and washboard. And we did have there was a wringer that you could turn by hand. It was hard rubber. But can you imagine a young
Diapers.
woman taking care of that many kids? We called it a boiler. It was a copper boiler about this deep, and they set that on the stove. And of course, the water was hard. It's got minerals in it. So then you put lye in it and brought it to a boil, and then that stuff would come to the top, like the iron and stuff, and they just skim it off.
Oh, okay.
That's how we made water for the washing machine.
Okay. And for bathing water, you wouldn't do that. You just...
Same. I mean, you'd sure get that rust out of it, because it wasn't brown water, but when it boiled, why, it scum on top.
Oh, okay.
And then you just dip it out of there and into we had a bathtub about as long as that. Not that much water. You didn't waste a lot of water.
I imagine. And did you have the bath in the kitchen where it was warm?
We had that just in the kitchen, set it on. We had a bench that we set it on. My sister was, she was in the middle, of us. We had 3 boys, and then my sister, she was always the first to take a bath. She was the cleanest. Well.
So how old were you when you went to school?
5.
Yeah. Tell me about that, going to school.
Well, the school, the neighbors lived about, probably a half a mile as the crow flies, and they built that school in 1929. That was the year I started school.
What school?
Rose Valley. And it was 16 by 24. And of course, it had windows on the one side and then a little entryway on it. And there were 5 of us, well, not at the time I started, because my sister was a year younger, but the older boys went, before that school was built, they went to the neighbors about 2.5, 3 miles, and there was a elderly school teacher, Aunt Susie they called her, and that's where they went to school till that schoolhouse was built. My 2 older brothers. And then the neighbors, Kierkegaards, they had 3 children, and the young, he lost his wife, so the little girl was only 4 years old, and they started her in school with me. Of course, she couldn't keep up with that thing, but then she went into the same grade as my sister. They were the same age. And that's all the kids that went. Well, off and on, we'd have somebody come and live in a homestead, it was abandoned, just have a place to live. And we had different kids would come. Some of them were relatives, and you might have, 2 or 3 extra kids, 1 teacher, all grades.
But they didn't last very long, huh?
The kids?
Yeah, the people.
No, they
who...
didn't go continually like the rest of us. Of course, then when my 2 older brothers came to Circle to high school, then we got a house in town and moved a house in here, and that was in 1937 when I was in 7th grade.
So you got a house for the kids to live in while they were going to school during the week?
Well, there was 2 older brothers lived with, they had some young guys just batched in here. One of them was Orville Quick. He was the same age as Richard, the guy was just a year older than I was, or 2 years.
So they trusted him? They trusted them enough to live on their own?
Oh, yeah.
I bet you could tell some stories. Tell us a few.
They were, well, of course, they were older than I was when they moved in here. Of course, Mom moved here, so no, it wasn't. Young people always dip into something.
Like what?
I didn't have much, and of course, the 30s was a tough time. I was only 5'2" and weighed about 120 pounds, and I didn't start to grow till I was a junior in high school. But anyway,
Do you think that was because of the rationing and stuff? Because
no, just genetics.
just genetics.
My
Okay.
dad was 5'8", and I think my mom was 5'7". She was tall for a lady, but just started to grow, and but anyway, what was that? In the mid-30s, even after we moved to town, well, then I would go out and stay with Dad. He was there by, batching out in the country, so I spent quite a lot of my time out in the country on weekends.
You said it was a rough time, the 30s. Tell us about it. What was rough about it?
Well, we never went, I don't remember ever being hungry. But, when 1929, 1929, when all the banks went broke, and it was, and I know Dad had borrowed some money against the homestead in the early 30s there. And people back east had money, and then they'd buy the mortgage, from the banks. And those people, their name was Eager, they kept that homestead. I mean, they foreclosed on Dad. I think it was then like 34, or maybe it was earlier than that. I don't remember. You have to look at the abstract to see, but then in 1939, they offered it. They borrowed it. They carried that mortgage of $3,600, carried it for that time, paid the taxes and all that. And in 1939, they offered it back to us for $1,000. And that's how we got the homestead back.
Did they do that because they were good people, or?
I never met them, but they probably, maybe it was their children or something, but anyway, that's what, and they had carried it and paid the taxes those years. But they wanted us to live there, because at that time, if you abandoned the homestead, fences, the buildings just disappeared. So they wanted people to live there.
What happened to them? Where'd they disappear to?
But
What happened to make them disappear?
oh, people just took them, skidded them off. Somebody else. There was still homesteaders around, but there was getting to be less and less and less. And then they rolled up the fences, you know.
So I suppose a perfectly good fence or some perfectly good
Well,
lumber.
It was good old badland cedars and stuff like that. But everybody, your homestead, you had the fence with around it with at least 2 wires. When they broke it up, 40 acres, they had to break up 40 acres. Can you imagine one bottom plow and a couple of horses on there?
That's some hard work.
And then those sisters and other brothers, they had to break up all their land. And, but like I say, it was tough times. You had a few cows, chickens, pigs, and a little garden, and but it was tough. And wheat was only 50 cents a bushel, and then Dad, well, he even between 1910 and 19 when I was born, he freighted his wheat to Glendive 45 miles on a team and wagon, and that's and then in 1928 the railroad come in circle.
Do you remember when that happened?
I remember, the only thing I remember about it, I was only 4 years old, but they had I called it carousel or something like that, and they had little ponies there, and I got to ride those ponies. I don't know if they just had them on display, but and then I remember that big steam engine, because that thing was big for a little guy, and it'd blow that steam out and a whistle, and that's the only 2 things I remember about the railroad coming in. A lot of people here. They said 10,000.
In any of these pictures we have, is there a picture of the carousel that you remember?
Oh, not in mine, no. Yeah. But it was just well, you've seen them with.
Yeah.
But they were only about that big. Little kids could ride them. But that's the only thing I remember about the railroad.
The railroad sure changed things here. And then it kind of went away. Tell us about that.
Well, before that time, of course, they didn't have any means of. When the railroad came, they put them in boxcars, to ship cattle to St. Paul, Minnesota. They were 20s, 30s, for length. Not a very big space where you put cows in there, 8 foot wide, and if they had, of course, Herefords at that time, anything that had horns you had to tie up in the boxcar. And, yeah. But I think in the 30s, it was pretty much all over when the banks went belly up, it was tough times, really tough in the big cities. And that's, of course, when they built Fort Peck Reservoir up here, a government program. A lot of people worked there. Dad never did. He worked on the irrigation project down at Glendive when they put that in. That was in the 30s too.
Irrigation canal?
Yeah, he just worked with they called the Fresno 2 horses and a scraper thing. He just worked for one summer, and that's all.
Did you ever get up to Fort Peck when you were a boy when they were building the dam?
I was up there. I don't remember too much about it. My uncle lived, that'd be Neil's dad, lived out. He and my uncle Nels homesteaded out. They call it Jake's Point. Have you ever been out there?
I know where you're talking about.
McGuire Creek.
Yeah.
And that's where they homesteaded. I didn't see how they could get 40 acres of ground the way that country look. But anyway, I went out there and stayed with him. And that was in 1936 or something, just for a week or so. And then he was close enough to Fort Peck that they bought those homestead because they could flood them, with the backup water. But it never has. It came up in a little draw there at one time. But
Do you remember McCone City at all?
just not much about it. But my wife had relatives that worked up there, and they lived in, well, one girl the same age as my wife, my first wife, was they used a dresser drawer for a crib. They were just a small house, one room probably, just like the homesteaders. And, but no, I never had much to do with it, but I did go up there and see when they were working on it. But
So when you were a boy, did you have chores you had to do? When did you start working?
well, I learned to milk cows when I was 6 years old, and they weren't dairy cows; they were just crosses, And then when I was about 12 years old, I suppose the neighbor, their girls had grown up and were older, and I went up there and they paid me 50 cents a day. I milked 6 cows morning and night. They only gave maybe a gallon and a half or something like that. But they weren't big old Holsteins or anything like that. I can remember that. I got to tell you a joke about that. Jim First, he talks about Lockhart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Hannah Lockhart was a sister to this lady out on Crown Creek. They were school teachers. But anyway, and Mel, he's kind of heavy-set guy, I can remember bib overalls. And anyway, they had it was a Buick car. It had wooden spoke wheels, I remember that. And we headed for him and his wife, not me. I wasn't in there with him, but they headed for town, and they got to arguing on the way. It was about a mile down to the grade, and there was a gate there, and they got to arguing. So she got out and opened the gate, and old Mel, he just drove off and went on into circle. She had to walk back. But I've still got, out on the ranch there, our tack room, I bought his garage. It was, let's see, it's about 12 by 16. You could run a Model T into it. I've still got that out there, tack room. That's over 100 years old.
So, do you have any family stories from before your family came over? Is there anything that your grandparents or your parents told you about what life was like before they came to the U.S.?
They had the name of the place where they lived was Roseland, and it was a nice farm in Denmark. And then my grandpa, I think he had a brother or something, and he got in financial trouble, and so my granddad helped him out, borrowed the money. He never paid it back, and he lost about half of the place. And that's about the time, I think, things weren't real good all over the world, when they came over here. And so they had 14 kids in the family. 7 of them came over here. 7 of them stayed in Denmark. And it was bad times pretty much all over 14 kids, you gotta have. So this homestead thing appealed to them, and of course, my uncle had been here since 6, so that was in 14.
Now, did any of them serve in the war?
Yeah, my Uncle Nels, do you know Lonnie Jensen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That would be his great granddad. He served, he was, I think he was about 19 or something like that. So he served in the First World War. And he didn't, you get your citizenship then. But they all came through Ellis Island. And Dad tells about the girls. There was two of them, and then the 2 younger boys, and they weren't young, 17, 19, and I think the girls were probably in their early 20s. But then they got through Ellis Island, and they got on into New York, and Dad said, "Now you can eat your apple." They didn't have a lot to go on. Well, I know, like, I have very little stuff on my mother's side, but she was born in Pennsylvania, and she was Scotch, Irish, and Dutch. And I'm sure that her ancestors came over here when the textile industry moved to America from England, and they hired a lot of those Irish people like cheap. They came over here. I thought that she was born in Pennsylvania, and then they moved to Missouri, and she lost her mother at, I think she was only 12 years old, and she became she had one sister that was a year older, and then 2 brothers, and then they moved. My granddad, he run a freight wagon from Lambert to Sydney, because that's where she went to school, and she only went to the 6th grade. So
That's how they met.
Huh?
That's how they met up there?
Yeah.
In Lambert?
Lambert, do you know where that's at?
No, I think he was asking how your parents met.
Oh, she was working for the neighbors about a mile or and a half away as a housekeeper. And she was only 17 years old, but that wasn't uncommon at that time, because you had lots of homesteaders and not very many women. And that's how they met and married then in 1919. And that's when the work started.
So do you remember anything really special with the holidays? Like your favorite Christmas present, or when you had Christmas or Thanksgiving, or anything special that was like family celebrations?
Well, we didn't. We might have got one thing for Christmas, but we always got an orange in the stocking. That's all that was in it. And my sister, when she was probably 8 or 7, her cousin and her got a dolly, one of them with the hard heads and and open and shut the eyes. And that was, but that was kind of unusual. I don't know how much that would have cost, but generally, like they might give like a sled, to the whole family. I know one time we had a wagon where we hooked a couple of dogs to it, and drove them. But one year we got, 3 older boys got skis. Mine were 5 foot, had a strap around like this, and you just stuck your toe through it. And pine wood is what they were with turned. And the other boys, next one got 6-footers, and my oldest brother got 7-footers. So our place out there, maybe you've been by it, but the homestead is about a mile off the highway, and there was we called it a big hill, good land. It's about like Circle Heights here, you know, where we skied down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, we always celebrated Christmas, and then, but not a big deal like they do nowadays, you know.
Did you do any come to town for like July 4th or like a parade? Now we do Town and Country Days, anything like that?
No, I don't remember of ever. Of course, we lived out there. To come to town with the team and wagon away 15 miles, you know, that was a day's journey to get in and get back. Really a good long day. And now, 10 miles out there, be here in 10 minutes.
Was it just a wagon road back then, and then
Yeah, just you'd call it the 2-track, or, you know, the team, they always use the same. Once you wore the sod off, you know, the lumpy, then the track would be smooth for the wagon run.
it get muddy if it rained?
Yeah, well, you can't hardly get a horse stuck, you know.
Did you ever take any like family vacations to visit relatives or go anywhere where any of your other relatives were?
Well, there was, some of them weren't too far from where we lived, and no, I don't remember ever going on any kind of vacation. The community would get together sometimes, and they'd hold play cards and dance, maybe dance in an area as big as this here. You know, 4 couples in what they call a square dance, and that's all only at one time. Of course, other dances where you get 4 or 5 couples out there dancing, and then usually had some local guy that could play the accordion or the guitar or something like that. And that was the entertainment for the night.
So did you do much dating, or is that how you met girls, going to those dances, or?
Not a lot.
There weren't a lot of girls
Well,
around.
I can remember as a kid, you know, Dad and Mom, they were sitting on a spring seat say in the winter time, that's about the only time. And we were down in the box with blankets and stuff. And then when the party was over, it wasn't that many miles away, you know, 2-3 miles away. We'd get in there and keep warm, and we'd go on home. But no, as far as dating, I would have to say until I started going in town, I dated my first wife when I was a sophomore in high school. Just took her to a picture show, 25 cents.
What
Do you remember
movie
what-
did you see?
What movie?
Huh?
What movie?
Oh, good land. I can't remember a lot of those old westerns, but then, you know, that was about the time that Joel Lewis was and they'd have a kind of a preview or whatever you call it. And that old Joel Lewis, you know, they only lasted about one round, and maybe then he knocked them down, knocked them out. He was a tough guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the old theater here in Cattleman. That's about where, let's see, where would be, like Laner's Insurance or something, but it was a wood building.
Princess Theater?
Huh?
The Princess Theater? Or was it, started with an M? Never mind.
Well, the guy that owned it was O.E. Lockram. He had the theater.
Yeah.
And, no,
So-
it was, you know, it was pretty old, but you know, at that time a movie was quite a thing for young people. We didn't have a lot of that stuff.
And I suppose you got the newsreels ahead of it too,
Yeah, there was that one.
which
Yeah.
kept you, you know, got you a little taste of the outside world.
Yeah. Well, the only thing we had was a battery radio, and the stations, Des Moines, Iowa, would come home late at night with the news and stuff like that. Dad listened to that, but there wasn't much outside. Of course, the Circle Banner, that's been here forever.
And you always read the Banner? You subscribed and read the
Yeah.
Banner?
Yeah, I think it was only $1.50, so on the subscription was pretty cheap. Yeah. But we only got mail out there 3 days a week, and that was about 2.5 miles to the mailbox. That came out with the guy named Wagner down here. He carried with a team and buggy in the wintertime, a small sled. And that came out, went toward Glendive, and then out that road east, and then it came out to our place and back.
So, did you do anything else in town for entertainment, like the roller skating, or anything?
Yeah, we did have, well, there was roller skating over, as it got older now, in high school and so forth, but not as kids. We just played like games outside. We called it kick the can. That's sort of a preview of soccer.
Right.
Kick the can across the line. Tin can.
So, how would you say that our county has changed since you were little?
In what respect? I mean, as far as, well, of course, there was not all this entertainment and stuff, and kids, when we grew up in the country, we just pretty much furnished our own entertainment. Like, I can remember we called it, I think it was Roundup or something, or festival. We'd go to Glendive once a year, and we was country kids, and then otherwise we pretty much like done the stuff we played ball and stuff like that.
I'm always surprised at how kids now are never really unsupervised.
Yeah.
And I imagine you probably had a lot of time where you were just, outside playing and nobody was really watching your every movement.
Oh no, and yeah, but you knew what you could and what you shouldn't do, and pretty well disciplined. Never had, of course, there weren't a lot of kids there anyway, and the neighbors were only half a mile away, and when we went to school, and it was different moving to town. Country kid. I was just a 7th grader, and I can remember. I think his name was Teddy, but he was kind of a tough little guy. I never did fight with him, but he sure would have liked to have. I think I could have whipped him, but we were told not to fight. I never have. I never have engaged in a real fight with anybody.
You never got in a fist fight?
Just one, I think it was probably 8th grader, a kid here in town. Him and I got I don't know what we even argued about. His dad run the bakery, and he ended up being a good friend, this kid. But we got to fighting about something. He hit me in the nose, and the nose started bleeding, so we went into his house and cleaned up the nosebleed. I don't even know what the fight was about.
Did you find that the town kids had chores like the country kids did?
Not so much, no, they didn't have. I think at that time, people could have chickens, and the place that we bought and moved the house onto there, he had some milk cows. There was a barn on that, and then he eventually run the dairy here, Wagner, and but people just they sold milk. Different people that had milk cows, We always had a cow. No, the kids, a lot more discipline than there is today. Kids get into trouble, but not like it is now. There wasn't a lot of stealing and anything like that.
What do you think's changed? Why is it different now?
I think, I don't know, it's moral values or the kids nowadays don't. I'm not going to brag about these, but my grandson, his wife got 4 kids. She homeschools them up there. She lives right close to Conroy Care in Gloria Bussey's house. You know where that's at?
Mm-hmm.
And those are the best. They are polite, disciplined little kids, and they never speak to them harshly or anything, but they know what the guidelines are. But well, it's been good. And as far as the ranch, we started the homestead when we was working with Dad. We only had probably 30, 40 head of cows, and they run out on the range and farmed some, but they're in, you said about tough. In the 30s, I can remember as a kid, Dad and I were walking out in the field. The thistles were about that high, and just a few spears of wheat in them. And of course, we cut them with a 5-foot mower with a dumper on it. That's what we fed the cows. But there was no grain yield there at all. And I assume that's in the mid-30s. The first good crop we had was in 1938. It went 8 bushels to the acre. But it was worth $1. And
Wow.
You didn't have any expense in it.
Did you ever do silage?
We did later, yes. And we bought of course we just the ranch grew somewhat in my brothers, all 3 of them were in the service. I wasn't. I got married in 1942, but the brothers, the oldest brother, he went first draft, when the war broke out in 41, and then my second brother went in 43, and Pete didn't go till I think it was in 44. So he was just went through basics, but he was sitting off the coast on a ship off the coast of Japan, and he said, if they'd ever invaded Japan, I wouldn't be here. Well, my brothers, all 3 of them were in the service. I wasn't. I got married in 1942, but the brothers, the oldest brother, he went first draft, when the war broke out in 41, and then my second brother went in 43, and Pete didn't go till I think it was in 44. So he was just went through basics, but he was sitting off the coast on a ship off the coast of Japan. And he said, if they'd ever invaded Japan, I wouldn't be here. They figured that old MacArthur, and he wanted to invade Japan. And they figured they'd lose 125,000 soldiers because those people just dug in, So he was, then of course the war was over in 45, so he got out. And,
So what was that like to be at home while that was going on?
well, it wasn't, my brother, just young or older than I, he got taken prisoner in that Belgian Bulge, like Merlin talked about there.
Mm-hmm.
But, and he was in prison from December till the spring, about. But he went, when he went into, he thought it was all planned because he was in a foxhole, had an M1 rifle with 20 cartridges. And they were about, he said they were about 200 yards apart, these foxholes. And he said the Germans were held up back out in the forest, their tanks. They just come through with those tanks. There's no way you could do anything. They just captured them. And after the tanks and the infantry came, and they said some 16-year-old kid, Germany was getting down at that time, pretty bad. They were losing the war. But he said, I think they planned they let them come through. And they went in, they called it the Belgian Bulge. They were headed for the coast. They got back in there.
And surrounded them.
Well, it cut off their supply line.
Oh.
That's how they captured them.
But unfortunately, some of the soldiers were like the sacrifice to be able to do that.
He said if you jumped out of that foxhole and started to run, they just mowed you down from the tanks, machine gun. So he said, this kid jumped in my foxhole. He said, I could have killed him, but he said, what good would it have done? And that's, so he just surrendered. There was no way you could do anything else. Heck of a place to be. So he just spent from December till in April, when they liberated him. He weighed 195 pounds going in, he weighed 135 by spring. He said the only thing he told me was, he said, no, unfortunate thing, Germans didn't like, they liked their potatoes peeled. And that's what we got, was the peelings. That's where the nutrition was.
Remember any significant weather, blizzards, tornadoes? Got any stories about weather?
Not so much we always had, there wasn't much grass. And so in the wintertime, the snow would drift over into the creeks, and then that was about all. Then that would melt off slower in the spring. And if it was a flat spot where you could get a little grass growth, we'd put that up for hay. But the winters were darn tough. 30 and 40 below, and you have housing like you have now. And we never missed a day of school, even in that cold weather. And that our teacher, it was the older lady, it was an aunt to her, but anyway, they lived about a mile or a little better from the schoolhouse. She walked over there in the morning, they had a big lignite coal heater, And she had that schoolhouse one time we got there, and we didn't have less than a quarter of a mile to walk, but she walked every day over there, back home at night. And there was one time there that just never got above zero. I mean, it was 20 below, and even got down to 30 and 40 below at night.
Did you ever get frostbite?
Well,
A little bit.
yeah, on your, chin and whatever. Of course, we always covered everything that we could. And the anecdote was to smear snow on it. I don't know if that's.
They told me that when I was a kid, and I did it, but I don't think it's a good idea.
Didn't feel very good, did it? Yeah. But anyway, as far as the ranch, of course, is developed. We had the three brothers, and it was at one time pretty good sized. And then as the boys grew up, I mean, the cousins, then you have some younger people involved, and we divided it up in three different ones, and I ended up here on the dry land stuff. We had a 300-acre irrigated farm down in Sydney. That's where my oldest brother lived, and the other one lived just part of the ranch.
Did your dad decide how to divide it up, or how did you do that?
What?
How was it decided who got what land?
Well, my sister-in-law pretty much she figured out stuff, and I said, well, just don't hang any rocks on anybody's neck, and that's the way she divided it all up.
I grew up in the city, and never really, things changed all the time. You meet new people, and family moves away, but here you've been around the same people your whole life.
Yeah.
Tell me about what's that like? Your friends, your relatives.
It's you establish as an adult, of course. I miss so many because I knew all the neighbors, and of course some of them. When Betty and I got married, I was only 18 and she was 19, and I tell people I was kind of old when I got married. But okay, we were kind of in between people that were 20, 30 years older than we had children our age, or our kids' age. And so, I forgot what you asked me.
What was it like knowing the same people your whole life?
Oh, well, you establish very good relationship with your neighbors. We always had, I know they met one time, that's been years ago, but anyway, like kids or people growing up, and asked, I said, my neighbors, there isn't a one that I wouldn't turn over my checkbook to. They were just good,
Wow.
honest people, all of them, and they were, most of them were older than Betty and I, but our kids were the same.
What about if you get crosswise with somebody, but they're your neighbor? What's that like?
Never had any problems, and back when I was a kid, and everything was open range. Of course, some of those people got a little bit long-fingered with. They'd steal horses. Horses were valuable at that time, but we never lost anything from anybody. For thievery or anything. It was just a good bunch of people, and we still have that kind of a relationship, work together, and it's been a good life. I had my youngest brother Pete, and then I don't know if you ever, did you know Dale Heidi at all? He was a neighbor over there, and they came in there about, they just lost their one daughter here a little bit ago, that Samantha. So Buck and Della. But see, Della was Dale and Jeanette's daughter.
Oh, okay.
And Dale he was my best friend, boy. We associated with each other for, my gosh, practically not all of our life, because they were younger, but they moved in over there. They bought a place about 6 miles east of us, and that's when they got married. And you don't do this anymore, but we had what they call chivalries. We went over there, and the guy that they had bought the land from, he was a little bit flaky. And so their uncle, or Dale's uncle, we went over there to chivalry him, and this is getting just about, well, it was dark, so they lived kind of in the hill, below the hill there, and we just stopped out there and then just snuck in on them. And that's old Selmer Lachlan. And that old house was just single pane windows and stuff like that. And he got outside. We waited till the lights went out, so we knew they were in bed. And Selmer was just outside the window in there, and he shot off a .30-30. Can you imagine that young lady? Figured it, probably old Adam that she bought. But that's how the chivalry started. And then you just played tricks on him. We put a saddle on Dale, and I wrote a little article about that, but she wrote him, and they said it was a qualified ride. Things like that, just.
Oh my
And
goodness.
then he had to push her around the wheelbarrow out in the yard, you know, and that's what they call a chivalry.
Sounds like fun.
It was fun.
So-
Yeah, it was, people just had a good time, you know.
So that was how you got up to trouble.
Huh.
That was how you got up to trouble.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
Were there a lot of people who did just Hereford? out
You know,
here?
back in the 40s, and you didn't start seeing any Angus around here till in the 50s, and then they were the wrong kind. They were too small, you know. And but Schillinger's up here. He raised Angus, and my goodness, the doggone things wouldn't come to your belt, you know, a yearling bull or a 2-year-old or whatever they were. But he done good, but then the things changed and they started getting more size to the cattle. But and they had dwarfism in the Herefords, and of course here we're just naive, starting up, and we bought from people up west, real known, you know, good Hereford breeders. We bought 50 2-year-old heifers, and then another outfit down in North Dakota. And then that's when this came out, the dwarfism. The pedigrees on them, they went by the pedigree, was no good. We never had dwarfs on them, but we had to turn them in commercial cattle then. But the people with money, this is where that were in the know. They know which bloodlines were clean, and they got rid of, knowing these cattle were, the pedigree wasn't clean, they sold them. And
Crooked.
I wouldn't do that to anybody.
That's crooked.
Well, I guess it's knowing, having the inside information. I guess that's what you'd call it. But there was only about three bloodlines that were clean, and those people owned them. But it was it's a learning experience.
Yeah, boy, life's a learning experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, what are you most proud of in your life?
Well, I guess and I don't, this isn't entirely, but because I was always on the ranch there, or farm, we farmed some and we ranched, but when the boys came back from the service, that's when you start to put the other, other entities. And I'm just real pleased that the ranch continued to grow for all those years. And then I judged a lot of cattle in my life, all over the western part of the United States. Hereford, Houston, Des Moines, Iowa, Stillwater, Oklahoma, Twin Falls, Idaho.
For fairs?
No, this was shows. They call them registered marriage shows on the Hereford cattle. But I just started out by people wanting me to judge these little county fairs. That's how I started. But you talk about John Wayne, I judged his cattle in Phoenix, Arizona.
Wow.
And I've been all over the West. I judged cattle in carload cattle that they had bulls in Denver. So I just had more opportunities to judge. I just finally had to quit. They just wanted me to judge too many shows.
So, did you notice anything specific about that experience and how it related to the cattle that you saw every day? I mean, like, was there a big difference in quality?
Yeah, my, shall I say, hope with my judging, whatever I did, would change the cattle to what they were the most productive, which is always middle of the road, like they were too small. And then the same thing with coloring, white on Herefords, sunburn, pink eyes, burn
Cancer
bags.
eyes?
And they should, now they're selecting them where they're red down to the feet and all goggle eyes. If you had a redneck calf when, years ago, they discounted him because he's redneck. I mean, it's crazy. But I thought I might have some influence on the kind of cattle, and I think you can't say specifically what they have come up to where the kind of cattle that I judged when I judged the show. And that was a good experience, but it's sure mind-boggling because I didn't have all this paper stuff on them, like they do now. And, you just do them by what you had upstairs and hope to.
Just your knowledge and what you saw.
Yeah, what you saw. And when you think about it, a homestead kid coming off to judge cattle all over the West here, unbelievable.
It's amazing. Huh.
But you say my best accomplishment is that I still have the ranch, and I just, it's all I've ever known, other than what exposure I had. I got exposure to a lot of people that had lots of money. Like I said, John Wayne, he didn't know nothing about cattle, but he had a herdsman, and guys, there's lots of them like that. There was money behind them, but the people that owned the cattle, they had people to show them, and that's what.
Did you meet John Wayne?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, I shouldn't. I met him because we was down in Denver, and my wife Betty, and you could kiss John Wayne. He picked up. I said to Betty, "Do you want to kiss John?" "No, I do not." I remember that was in the lobby of a big hotel, or whatever it was. He was, no, he could have got your picture with all these cameras. You could have got a picture with him, but no.
I would have made the front page of the gossip magazine.
Yeah.
It would have been in the banner anyway.
Any more questions?
Yeah. So what advice would you give to any young people that are looking at this video?
Looking at
That are
They're going to be
well,
watching
we're recording.
your story.
They're watching you on the internet. What advice do you have for these young people today?
Well, one thing I would, just as far as these cards, this money thing, know what you're spending your money on, and don't buy. If you don't need it, don't buy it. A lot of times I'm driving a pickup out here that probably it's an old 3 or 25, what would it be, 20 years old. But it don't look much different than the ones that were turned all, well, different than those. But it's a nice outfit. It isn't all beat up and everything. And I like that, but it don't bother me. But some people get carried away with gotta have something better all the time. And they get sucked into, you can do it even on machinery. The company will no interest or payments for, say, 3 or 5 years. It's already figured in the price, but you gotta be, today things move so fast. Don't get snookered by a lot of this. Know what people are saying. I mean, it's propaganda and crap that comes out. And I don't know. You just teach people by what you do. I mean, by example, not by, I don't give hardly anybody any advice. I might talk to my son about things like that, but pretty much turn it over to them because they know what they're doing. But I'd say just don't get suckered into over your head in debt, because it's awful hard to get out of. I had one nephew that said, "Well, Uncle Earl," he said, you could borrow a lot more money than you do." I said, "Yeah, but it has to be paid back." And
it's good advice.
yeah.
Good advice.
Do you think that part of that was living through the bank collapse and the depression? And
I think living to get along with what you had instead of it was a lesson. But there's so much out there nowadays. All this, I can't even handle these computers and cell phones. You got more on that little cell phone than they had on when I was in Hereford. When the computers first come out down in Kansas City, they had a room bigger than this with the data in those computers. I mean, where they were registering the cattle and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
No, they can stick it on a computer that big. I don't know how much that would hold.
Well, I know that this phone has like 100 times more power than it took to send the astronauts to the moon. The computers they had.
What?
Oh yeah.
Gee.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, kids nowadays have never existed in a world where they haven't had electricity, where they haven't had the whole history of human knowledge in a device the size of a credit card. They've never been unentertained. They've never been, like, there's a lot of disadvantages to that. They've never had to entertain themselves. They've never had to go and look something up and get an encyclopedia and do
Get
the
bored.
research and find the information. They just kind of get everything thrown at them.
Yeah.
And they have a real lack of grit and a lack of ability to, like, be patient and wait and work for things.
Yeah, that's right. There's a good example. Don't, just because you want it, don't go out and buy it and get in debt over your head. No, it's and like you say, those cell phones are the worst thing that a kid can have to sit in school with, because you can ask that thing anything,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll give you.
It'll give you an answer. It might not be the right one. Well, there's kids now that they're trying to use, like, artificial intelligence to
Yeah.
write their papers and stuff. And artificial intelligence is not that smart.
When you were young, do you remember getting you probably grew up with the radio, right? The radio, listening to the radio.
Well, like I said earlier, it was just all we had was a little battery radio, and all we had, what was it? Trying to think of them. Some songs, more like a record or something like that playing, but we didn't have much for radio when we were kids.
Now, when did you get television?
Television, when it first came out, Betty's folks had a little screen television. It wasn't very good.
So that was after you got married.
Oh yeah. We didn't have much. You'd never believe this. I shouldn't even tell you. When we moved over, have you been out toward Ritchie?
Oh yeah.
You know where Wes lives there on the hill?
Yeah.
Well, right down the road, though, to the right there, is where Betty and I moved in 1947. I bought a homestead shack, you'd say, but it was A-frame. I mean, it was well built. 16 by 22. I moved it there, and we moved in there we just had the one big room and then two little bedrooms. And the first winter, we didn't get it on a foundation or basement of any kind. We just had it up on railroad ties. And I tell people this, and we had three little girls at that time. The one was just, she was born in 46, so she was probably just a little over a year old. I said, when you threw a diaper on the floor, it'd freeze.
Oh my goodness.
Oh no.
It was cold.
Oh my goodness.
We had a little oil heater about like that, and then we had a 3-burner kerosene stove to cook on. That was kind of like going back to the homestead days, and we got through that and just kept. And there again, we just kept adding on. First, it was a lean-to onto that house, kitchen, and dug a well in the basement, and just didn't have running water, outdoor toilet. That's how Betty and I started.
My goodness. How many kids did you have?
We had 6. We had those 3 girls. They were only about a year apart or a little bit over. And
So
then,
you essentially had 3 kids in
Wait.
diapers in
Well, no.
a homestead with no running water.
that one little girl was in diapers, but then we waited about, I think, 8 years, and we had 3 more. That's where Wes and Janet, do you know her? Janet McCabe. And Mark, our youngest son, he died in 1998 from a brain tumor. And that's Ellen's. She was married to Mark. That's where that family comes from. And then Betty passed away in 2000 from a brain tumor. Our youngest of the 3 oldest girls passed away with a brain tumor in 7. And then she had some of, well, I'd say Mark and Betty had good doctors up here at Billings. They operated on them, kind of like, what's his name on here, Berger? That works for, what's his first name? He works for sometimes he works at the post office.
Oh, Greg Berger?
Greg Berger.
Okay.
He has brain, but he seems to be getting along. Of course, gee whiz, this is a lot of years, since he passed away. But I was going to say about Linda, she had some of the breast hospitals and doctors that you could get in the United States. And then, of course, the older girls, then they were wondering about, whether that was genetic. And that doctor said it is not genetic. You can test for it if you want to, but he said it is not genetic. And I don't know why it would cause that. Be 3 of them. And,
Maybe environmental.
I don't know. We were never, I was never exposed to we never used a lot of chemicals or anything in my time, but.
Even something as simple as like radon in the ground, that now you have detectors for it.
Yeah.
But when you were out on a homestead, there's no way to know.
It's hard to tell about things like that.
No.
Yeah.
So is there anything, if you could do it over again, you'd do differently? Is there anything you regret?
Well, I'll not talk about that.
We won't tell anybody.
No, I don't know. I think I have always liked what I did, and work didn't bother me. If you had an extra round you had to make at sundown, you made it, because it looks like rain. Length of days, of course, it was even longer in the homestead days. Those people worked with horses. They worked, you might say, from daylight till dark, either gathering the horses and all that stuff. But never bothered me to work. I wasn't lazy. I don't think I was a workaholic, but I just liked what I was doing. I like the livestock business, and gosh, I've done everything there is to do with with the cow. Betty and I, when we first started, my first wife, we got 8 coming 2-year-old heifers. These were Herefords, but they only weighed 750 pounds, and they were to have calves. So Dad had 7, and we had 8. Out of those 8 heifers, I lost 4. We lost 4 from calving. Not the heifer, but the calves. You just.
They were just too little.
Well, yeah, and then the funny thing was that some of them come backwards. Of course, that might have to do with the size of the heifer. I don't know, but I had a lot of experience with veterinary stuff in my life, because I can do about anything with the cow. I never did a cesarean, but some people did. But I'm sure I could, yeah.
So you know what to do with all the equipment back there for that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot back there.
Yeah.
So,
I harnessed your horse out here.
thank you.
When Wendell was here, he bought a set of harness at some auction sale, and there was they had Coopers. I'd never dealt with a Cooper. The workhorses always had the breeching strap around the back, and this Cooper, goes on the tail. That I always thought that was for buggy horses and stuff like that. But anyway, he bought these harnesses that you have out, just a pile of harness, and they were inside out. Somebody just, what in the world? I had never had this. Harnesses were always hanging on a peg, but I untangled him for him. That's what. Has he got him on the team out there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to go look at it when we get done here. Were you a reader, Earl?
I like to read. Didn't have that much time when growing up and raising a family, but I still read some, and if it's a good book that's got some sense to it, then I can.
You like fiction?
Hard to put it down. I can still see pretty good.
So no dragon books for you?
No.
No dragon books for you?
What kind of books do you like?
You what?
What kind of books do you like to read?
Oh, I like to read just authentic stuff. I don't like, when I was, years ago, we read them Western stories and stuff like that. And some of the books that were written back then were real good. But I like something that has something to it, not necessarily scientific or anything like that, but a good story or.
What's your favorite book?
Oh, gee whiz. Oh, I like the book Call of the Wild. That was written many years ago. Wasn't that was a dog that went out in the wild, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Call of the Wild by Jack London?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good book.
I like that book.
Yeah, it's a good book.
No, well, big sense, Yeah.
Do you watch television?
Not a lot. I don't. I had. I liked certain news. I just put it on mainly for news. The audio, like sometimes a good movie is all right, but I don't watch them much because I miss a lot of it with the hearing thing. So, but I listened to Sunday morning, Dr. Jeremiah, on the preacher down in California, but I don't particularly like the big production ahead of time. Good land, they must have 100 people in the choir and, you know,
Yeah.
instruments, and they play for about, I think, like a half an hour.
Oh my gosh.
But I like his sermons.
I suppose if it's one of those mega churches, it takes that long just to get everybody in the pews.
I wonder.
You know, because some of those mega churches, you know, have 10 or
Oh, that
15,000
might be.
people.
Yeah, it's like a stadium.
Yeah, but it's such a production, you know. So.
Yeah.
So what made you get started writing poetry?
I'll tell you, when I was a kid, and I never wrote much poetry till later years, you know, but when I was a kid, I always liked that. I'll recite it for you. I want to live in the house by the side of the road and watch the men go by. The men that are good and the men that are bad, as good and as bad as I. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. That was the poem, and I learned that back when I was in about probably 5th or 6th grade.
Huh. My goodness.
Yeah, I like that poem. That was kind of a, but I a lot of times think in verse, you know, like you see, you think about, I was thinking about writing something for the class reunion. And the first thing that came to my mind was going to have an all-class reunion. They say it's going to be a big day. I think the first thing you will notice, there are a lot of heads turning gray.
That's great.
That's the first. I mean,
great.
that's but I
like
haven't. I wouldn't even. But I know, in my sense, that if I show up at the reunion, I'm the oldest guy around. I'm the only one alive in my class, and I know that some guy will get up and say, "Well, there's old Earl Jensen. He's the oldest guy."
Yeah.
I'm not I don't particularly like to be up front. I've had to do it in my lifetime, but I've held church services and had with the American Church Association. I was on the nominating committee for their new directors, you know, down in Kansas City. 1,500 people there. This old kid, that's not my forte up front and that many people.
You had to speak?
Well, I had to get up but the night before, I was getting telephone calls. Well, don't put that many guy on. He's raising Simmental's, and he might slip a Simmental straw into a Hereford cow. Of course, Simmentals are black or white and red, just like Herefords, but they're built musclier. You know, stuff like that. Just political. Didn't amount to nothing. But here I am. They called me. I was in the room at night, and well, we nominated the guy that they were saying don't know. I was the chairman of that committee, so.
Is there a big, like, Simmental lobby? I mean, I guess I just wasn't aware that there was all that political machination around cows.
Well, it's just, anytime you get into groups like that, there's always a certain amount of that. But I've never been involved that much, but that was one thing, because I was president of the Montana Herpers Association, so then they put me on to be. And the guy that was had been president of the American Herb Association, he said, "You should run for president of the American Herb Association." He said, "I know you'd get elected." I said, "No, I don't think so." I said, "How is it?" They have to attend all of these things, you know, and give talks and stuff. And he said, it cost me about $10,000 a year out of my pocket to be the president of the American Herb Association. I don't have $10,000 out of my pocket. Just a bunch of, what would you gain? Here again, what would I gain to make my ranch operate by being president of the Herb Association? And then you travel all over the country. That's the kind of...
I think if you were an honest person, not much. If you were sneaky, you get a lot.
No, I'm just, I never always considered other people a lot smarter than I was, you know. Like they say about, what was that saying? You've heard this, sir, but it's better to stay quiet and act like you're stupid than to open your mouth and prove that you are.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Yeah. Have you memorized any of your poems?
I don't, you know, I don't memorize them. I can read them real well.
You want to read one for us on camera?
All I got is
Here, let me grab the...
I think the only one I brought, well, that one that
You brought one about Orville and one about Merlin.
Well, no, there's probably some in some of these books here, but I'd have to find it.
But you know, this is really just the way it happened too. I was plumb cold sober, but have you ever read this one on my unplanned journey on my new riding lawnmower?
No, I haven't.
Wow, this is just the way it happened, and it shouldn't have, but I'd had it out there and I was riding around and I had there was a patch of fireweed there close to the bank, and I just run over there and cut them. And you had to put it in order, you had to shut the mower off. If you put it in reverse, it'd kill the motor. So I had shut that off, and those pedals on that thing were about that far apart. Of course, I had a different boot on, but instead of the backward to back up, I pushed it forward. And I went, it wasn't from here to where you were sitting, out over the edge. It wasn't a bank, but it was, well, it was dropped first, and then it was just gradual down the hill, and here's where I did it. It wasn't my plan for this ride to take, but it got out of control when I made a mistake. I pushed the power pedal. It was only an inch from reverse. Out over the edge of the steep hill I burst. I hollered, "Whoa," but the darn thing thought I said go. I think it was put together down in Mexico. I didn't have much time to decide going down that steep slope. I was going faster than my saddle horse at a full lope. Barbed wire fence coming up in front and grass flying by on each side. I knew I was in for a heck of a ride. Fence coming up, barbed wire and wood. From the look of things, this ain't gonna be good. I had to make a 90-degree correction, or I'm over the fence and in the next section. I made the turn, but the mower tipped over. The next thing I knew, I was on the fence, laying in tall clover. The machine had me held just above my left knee. No matter what I did, I couldn't get free. I never lost my hat at the end of the run. That sure was a blessing out in that high blazing sun. Only had my jackknife to chip out some dirt from pressure points. Laying in one position is hard on old aching joints. Plenty of time to think and analyze my situation. No traffic, no cell phone, no TV station. Took some mighty sharp thinking on the part of the family to figure out my plight. I was mentally preparing myself to spend the night. I said to the Lord, I've done everything I can do. My fate is in your hands, the rest is up to you. It wasn't a minute later I heard footsteps coming my way, best sound I'd heard all through the day. In a few seconds, out of the corner of my eye, Ellen's face appeared. She looked like she was going to cry. Hi, Ellen. Sure good to see you. Started giving orders to take away her fear. Go get the fence cutters and get me out of here. It was only a minute when I saw about 10 pair of eyes looking down at me. In a very short time, they had me free. There's no doubt in my mind, Jesus is always near. Just ask for his help and caring people will appear. If there are any who don't believe in Christ, take my advice. Winter is coming and you might slip on the ice. I've been given the time to share my thoughts with you. Believing in our Savior Jesus Christ is not taboo. Best wishes for each day on your journey home. Make sure he's at your side so you're not traveling alone.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's the story, the way. And it was the 24th of July. It was about 85 degrees, and fortunately, I had a straw hat. And when I went down on that fence, of course, it just let me down easy. I never lost my hat. I had leather gloves on, and there was a strip in here, the kind of sunburn. But I laid there for 10 hours.
Oh my
gosh.
goodness.
No water.
Oh my gosh.
And the reason I didn't have I had the doggone cell phone plugged in, recharging it. If I'd have had that, I'd have been out of there in
2
half
minutes.
an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have just called somebody. It was down over the hill out of sight, and they couldn't figure out where I disappeared to. I thought, well, maybe he went uptown to cut somebody else's lawn or something. And Lee told his mother, you look over that hill, because you couldn't see anything. Where I came off when I went down like that, it was kind of slope there, behind wasn't cut or anything. It was a grassy slope, but pretty steep. And Ellen said, well, I looked there. He said, you better go look again. You go a little farther over. And by golly, that's where he found me anyway. But I was plumb, I didn't out of my head or anything. But I had laid there for quite a while. And like I said, I just decided I'm going to spend the night here. And it would have been kind of chilly, and of course maybe would have got more dehydrated than I was. I said, I went over, they took me over to the clinic, and I said, oh, I'm all right. No broken bones or anything. And oh, better send you. So they flew me to Billings.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I said to Patty, I can just stay right here. Patty Whitcup was on duty. And nothing wrong with me. Wes said, your urine looked like molasses.
Oh.
getting pretty well dehydrated. But they have the stuff to put, in your veins. I got it up there to Billings, and this doctor that I had, he was a real character, but he said, you got them, what did he say? You got, and here I am, this is only, well, it was 8 years ago. He said, you got the mind of a 40-year-old and the body of a 60-year-old. Here I'm what, 94 or something like that. But he was good. His name was Dr. Skip or something like that. And I said, is that your name? I said, where'd you get a name like that? Well, my dad had a dog with that name. he was a real character. Yeah, that's my experience.
Thanks for reading that. What an experience. My goodness.
I never mentioned that, but the worst storm that I ever, and I never want to see another one like it, 1964, we had the place that we have now, but we were driving out, we were going to go down to feed, and that moved in about 9 o'clock in the morning, and when we crossed the highway to go down into the pasture, that wind came in 45 miles an hour, and there was about 8 inches of snow on the ground, not real fluffy stuff, but that kind of a wind, and it looked like we were going downhill, in the pickup because of the storm. So we just turned around and went back home, and that lasted, those little cows didn't get fed for 3 days. That is the worst. It was 45-mile-an-hour wind and 35 below, and that snow was so hard, like we had a stockade around the yard down there, but anyway, it blowed up under and over that, and the next day there was a bull standing on top of that snowbank.
That's how hard it was. My goodness.
Just hard.
Like cement.
I seen like in the shed, that they had a nail, a hole, the tin, and it just like what do you call them, stalagmite?
Oh, okay, yeah.
It just built up just like an icicle from the top. It was so fine, Herb. And the cows, some of them had lost cows that way, but they breathe in that fine snow, and then it would form like around their face,
Oh, so they'd suffocate?
Yeah, they'd suffocate. We never lost any that way, but they had those frozen around there.
Oh my gosh, wow.
I never seen it. One guy, a young couple over toward Bloomfield in that area, I think they had 150 two-year-old heifers. And there was pretty good, rough protection there. But he called them up on top to feed them, and then that wind came up. And of course, then they couldn't go back, they wouldn't go back against that wind, and they just drifted, till they hit a fence corner, they froze to death.
Wow.
His whole herd?
The 150.
Oh, that's a tough way to lose your...
To go out of business.
Yeah.
This Bob Dell, he was over, just had moved in there this side of Ritchie, and he, fortunately, they just had an 8 by 12-foot trailer out on the place where they live now, but that's all they had at that time. And that storm moved in, and of course they couldn't get back out. He said if we hadn't have been in Ritchie, we'd have froze to death.
Is there anything else that you think we've forgotten?
I know there is, because Whenever I talk to somebody, I'll go home and say, "Why didn't I ask them this?"
Yeah,
You know, or you
it's,
were saying making those theme videos. We've asked questions of some people we haven't asked of others, and I'm always like,
Now, did any of your family have sod houses at all?
no, I've read quite a. I don't remember what it was about. Well, about the North Dakota, and that was a good. It was a book on how that developed down there along the Red River, and they have more timber and stuff than we do here. That was sure good. That was back in the homestead days or early days in North Dakota.
Yeah, that was what my grandfather had when he came. Is he he dug it into the side of a hill.
Yeah.
And packed it in with sod, and I think 3 of them burned before he finally, had enough money to get like a real house. He'd, leave the coals banked and go out to work the field and come back and his house had burned down.
"My goodness, wow." Huh.
Yeah, those old sod houses, of course, they were 2 foot thick, They were pretty airtight, warm, but and that was back when they didn't have doctors and stuff there in North Dakota, and told about all of that. And this guy, and they had a big storm, and so he was around. He took his mule and was riding. And he got to the first place, I think, and found them okay. And then he just disappeared during the night. It was a really bad blizzard. And all they found was the bridle. The wolves ate him.
Oh my gosh.
And the mule. They ate the mule too.
Wow.
He got out in the woods there.
Wow.
So, and he was kind of the mainstay of the whole, the whole family area there.
When you were little, was there still any mountain lions, bobcats, wolves, anything like that?
It was so, there just wasn't much of anything, Herb. I know I used to go out and hunt cottontails. We ate some cottontails. They're just like chicken. But jackrabbits, they said, don't eat jackrabbits, they got tularemia. So we never ate jackrabbit. But you would think if you skinned them and boiled them, well, you'd have killed everything. But no, there wasn't, because there wasn't enough to feed on. There wasn't a lot of rabbits, and there was no such poor vegetation. We didn't have. We did after a few years. We did have coyotes, and of course the sheepmen they'd shoot them whenever they could. But there was no deer or anything like that when I was a kid.
Not like today.
Not like today.
I see a lot of deer, a lot of antelope, even coyotes. I see coyotes, foxes, rabbits.
Yeah, where you have different wildlife.
Why do you think that was?
Huh?
Why do you think that was?
Well, for one thing, there just wasn't any vegetation. Rabbits live on grass.
Right. Do you think that was part of like the Dust Bowl part of the Great Depression?
Yeah.
That killed all the vegetation and the animals just went away?
Yeah, they were probably some down along the rivers, but we never saw anything like that. Never had deer, antelope, anything like that.
But there is now, isn't there? Or is there? Now there is, or not?
Oh, yeah, there is.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. But
is that because they're protected, or?
Well, no, there's just a lot of vegetation, and
okay.
I think we changed the way we planted stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I think the deer eat the wheat; they eat the grain.
Right, but the way that we used to plant in the like late 1800s, 1900s, 1920s didn't conserve the topsoil.
Oh, yeah.
And then
yeah.
after the Great Depression, when all that stuff failed and the topsoil vanished, they went, we've got to change how we plant. And I've noticed that nowadays people are pretty conscious of like alternating like a wheat crop with a legume to put minerals back in the soil. And
When they do that drill
no
planting, that they don't plow anymore. They just
no till.
yeah, no till. Yeah.
so it's like there's always ground cover.
Well, when they plant these peas and stuff, boy, when they just cut them off, there's nothing left there. But they rotate. You don't plant peas in the same ground the next year. They'll plant wheat or something like that. But they continuously farm now, and it used to be we would summer fallow half of it, and then the next year put crop in, and but now they do some some chem fallow, but mostly continuous cropping. Seed something in it every year. Alternate the crops, like you say.
And that's just really different, because I think even when I was a kid, they didn't really do that.
No.
Is that because of? I should just. Well, why is that?
I don't know.
Pesticides, fertilizers. Has that changed everything?
You'd think, of course, we used to summer fallow. Of course, then you just tilled it, and it was black. They could say, just no weeds, and that works nitrogen into the soil, the rain, and stuff like that. But in summer fallow, it raises usually a pretty doggone good crop, but just every other year, But now they farm every year. They put peas in, and they put wheat, seems to work for them.
So fertilizers make that possible?
The fertilizer is somewhat, yes. Yeah, if they're going to farm every year, they got to put fertilizer on, put some of that nutrient back in the soil. Yeah. But, that's kind of my life story, and I feel, I've had a good life. I've done different things, and the most, you asked my family, faith, hope, and family, or friends, and I've got a lot of friends, and I have the families of this younger generation, they're all believers, and they're just good. Well, you asked me, the question was what I was the most proud of in my life, and I don't like the word proud, so I'm going to say that one of the things I'm most pleased about is that all of my family are Christian believers, and I'm very pleased with that. And of course, in any family, there's maybe some not as strong as others, but as a whole, they are very strong Christian people and live accordingly. And that's one of the things I'm very pleased about. The second thing is that my dad homesteaded in 1910, and then I don't have very much about the time between then and when he married my mother in 1919 or 2000. Let's see. Anyway, yeah, 1920 or 1919, And then we on the homestead there, and we lived. They had 5 kids in about 6.5 years, and you can imagine the work that those people had to do. They went through the flu epidemic and survived that, and then from then on it was the ranch, as it starting back in 1910. That was the basis for it, and through those years we only run about probably 30 or 40 head of cattle, and then it just continued to grow with the help of others, my brothers and such, to the ranch that is the part that I have as a ranch has evolved into a 400 cow operation, and providing food and for this country a share of it, and for the rest of the world. And what pleases me is that it's in good hands and I can pass it on to the next generation to provide food and fiber for this country and the rest of the world. That pleases me, and I feel very good about that, and it's in good hands. The younger generation is doing very well with it.